But it must be said that Russia has completely different plans. It has no intention of stopping at today's at the current front line. It plans to increase its aggression, ferocity, and occupation. And now there are absolutely no illusions left. It is not interested and is not deviating from its messianic delusional path. And Russia is doing everything it can to, having lost its last grip on reality, implode from within, rot, and fall apart. Well, that's not difficult. It's not difficult since we are witnessing astonishing results in the total degradation and degeneration of the state. Degeneration that is already beginning to resemble a mix of ancient Egyptian pharaonism, German fascism, but with, of course, a touch of the valuable experience of 16th century Russia. Do you remember I once told you about the songs of Kirsha Danilov? This is one of the few genuine natural things that existed in Russian, well, let's say in Russian literature of that time. And there, the main idea of Russian statehood was quite aptly formulated in the phrase, the assless run and fart, while the noseless run and sniff. Well, later, this little verse grew into an entire philosophical doctrine called pathethon, created by the hack writer Dugin. But in general, of course, this global forum known as Russia of the Future 2050 ultimately became the clearest and best possible proof that in reality, Russia has no future at all. And this Congress, we can already sum it up, which brought together the most influential and renowned obscurantists, made it clear that the Russian world will never again make any compromises with modernity or with common sense. Because from the point of view of today's ideologists and those who shaped the country's fate, it was precisely the various thaws, reforms, and liberalizations that destroyed the USSR. And such mistakes must never be repeated again. As a result, as a summary of what awaits Russian citizens, domestic policy will not deviate from the course of consistently and relentlessly suffocating any freedoms and ties with the West. The corrupting culture of the West, of course, must be replaced by the great Russian and Soviet cultures. And as for foreign policy, yes, it will be entirely focused on wars, conquests, and genocides of disobedient countries. And it was stated with absolute frankness that only repression, parasitism, and the occupation of neighboring countries have historically allowed Russia to realize itself and be true to its nature. And if these activities are taken away from it, or even simply limited, the country will lose all meaning for its existence. It will become lifeless and lazy. And as for its own population, according to this vision of the future, it is to be turned into dull Orthodox cattle, whose sole purpose is to serve the designs of the country's leadership. But you already know about the State Duma resolution, which completely transfers the management of the Academy of Sciences, and in fact, all Russian science under the wing of the FSB, in order to prevent leaks of classified information. And the Ministry of Justice has proposed to lower the age of criminal responsibility for teenagers and children from 16 to 14 years old. But of course, this will primarily affect political charges and expressions of contempt or disrespect toward all these eternal flames, eternal fires, and all these victory worship paraphernalia. Well, judging by what they've written, judging by what they want, judging by how they envision this future, I suppose that probably it would actually make more sense to resolve the issue in favor of nuclear war, since there's really no point in living in the world that Dugin and Zakharova are painting, honestly. In a world where people like Malofeev and Putin impose their own order, there is no place for reasonable and free individuals. Well, maybe all of this will go unnoticed by the working cattle who are willing to accept any kind of dictatorship and are ready to fulfill absolutely any whim of their superiors. And as for the state of Russian society, well, you can see for yourself. You can see to what extents everything is vivid, beautiful, and when it happens, it's impressive. I mean, the protests against the war and against Putin, but the number of people who dared to speak openly and frankly on this topic, to call things by their proper names, is truly negligible. But here it should be understood that this small number of repressions does not indicate the humanity of the authorities, but rather the degradation of the people and their growing cowardice.